Hello all, welcome to the Hand Spinner Review Spot YouTube channel. Please click the subscription button next to you just to give us some support, and hopefully if you like our stuff you'll want to do that anyway. Here today we're looking at something quite interesting and something which I personally love but also causes a bit of controversy, and that is exotic materials. And no, this isn't just an excuse for me to pull out some ludicrously expensive spinners, because they are pretty insane. Really, it's more to discuss, one, what these things are, and two, why in the world you might want them. And in some ways it's a bit kind of immaterial, because you'll know if you want them or not, and you'll probably know why they tickle your fancy, why you're excited about them, what it is about them that gets you going and that you find particularly interesting. But yeah, let's talk about it. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to link in the description box below to an article that I did for the website Spinnermint, which I'm sure some of you will have seen. And I detailed on that kind of an introduction to different exotic materials, and that includes various materials that we don't have in front of us today. There's no tungsten in front of us today. Oh, actually, I can remedy that. There is some copper tungsten. In fact, actually, I can't remedy that because I can't fit it in. There you go. There's some copper tungsten there. I haven't got any zirconium on the table. There's a few others that just aren't featuring here today because I don't happen to have any in my collection as it currently stands. But what we will touch on in terms of what you can actually see is Mokuti or Damascus, the tungsten copper, now that I've remembered I had that. A couple of different patterns of Damasteel, Superconductor, Mokume, and something which is only just really starting to turn up, which would be stainless steel, which would be sterling silver. Stainless steel is not an exotic material, although it is probably my favourite of the base materials. So, what are exotics? Well, really, they're not that exotic in the sense that what they really are is expensive, rare, beautiful materials. That's what they are. They're not exotic in a defined sense, in that you can get hold of all these things, although superconductor is becoming quite tricky. What makes them unusual is the sheer expense to produce, some of the rarity of sourcing them, and how difficult they are to finish or refine or machine, and then on top of that, just their sheer visual beauty. Nothing you see on the table here is any better intrinsically because of the material it's in than this. This is a brass stubby. Everything here, the materials aren't contributing. If there is something on this table that's better than this brass stubby, it's not because of the material. The materials in something like a spinner are purely visual and decorative. And when it comes to things like Damasteel or Mokuti, that's exactly, or indeed Mokume, that's exactly what they were produced for. They weren't intended ever to be available because of the fact that they're anything other than beautiful. So, let's have a look at what we have in front of us. This is Mokume. This is 2 layers of material, although it does come in 3. This is bronze. This is brass and copper, although it does come in brass, copper and nickel silver mixes as well, and that's beautiful. Watch out for Rotorblade at the moment, because Paul over there is going to be making some stubbies in that, which I'm sure are going to be absolutely stunning. We've got Superconductor here. Superconductor is a really, really interesting material. I'm not going to harp on about what its uses are. Again, you can hit the description, the link in the description below to go over to that article that I wrote for Spinnermint to give you a bit more depth, but also just a quick Google over superconductors and then niobium copper superconductor, which is what this is. It's you know, different uses are fascinating. Basically what it is it's niobium rods, which is an interesting metal in its own right, impregnated through a copper layer. So it's a niobium filament essentially inside copper, and when you machine it and cut it across the grain like this, horizontally, you get these fantastic dots, and then on the side you get these sort of stripes. It's a beautiful material. It's one of my absolute favourite materials. You see that here in this Nibiru. There's a disc of it on the inside, and then from that point we move on to Damasteel, or stainless steel Damascus. Damascus has been made for generations. It's an age-old material. It's amazing stuff. And in spinners, Let's pull this one out because it's a bit easier to see. It's generally used like it's always been for its decorative properties. It's effectively two different grades of steel. These are obviously industrially done in a stunning way to create these patterns, but they're layered together, laminated together, and then when you first machine this, it ends up as a solid finish. You can just about see the pattern in certain lights, but not really. You then put this into a bath of chemicals, and it will etch and eat away at one layer more than it does the other, or if at all on the other, and that gives you this relief quality which shows you the other finish. So as you can probably tell, there's quite a lot of steps to actually producing the kind of effect that you get on a piece like this. This is a different pattern of that. This is Spirograph stainless Damascus, and it's another beautiful one. It's this kind of webbed quality. It's just great. It's lovely. I'm a big fan of Damasteel and Damascus in general. Then we've got Tungsten Copper. Tungsten is an incredibly heavy element. It's so heavy, it's crazy. This has got a bit of copper in it as well. I can't remember the exact ratio. It might be 70-30, something like that. Tungsten's incredibly heavy. It's incredibly dense, and you will see a few spinners out there. The Venom Defense and Design, Sam over there, he makes his Fidget in those, and it's great. And then we come to Mokuti or Damascus. Those are two different brand names for the same thing. I think it might be Alpha Knife Supply and Chad Nichols. Correct me if I'm wrong on that in the comments, but I think that's correct. Effectively what that is 2 to 3 layers. It might have been done in 4 by now, I'm not sure. Different alloys of titanium, and when you laminate those together, what you get, as I say, it's kind of similar to the fact that you need to do another process like you would in Damasteel. You flame it after it's been machined and polished and all the rest of it, and as it anodizes, one grade or all the grades of all the alloys and grades of titanium inside it will flame at different rates, so you get a whole array of colors. And as you can see on something like this stubby, it's a really wide range of colour that you can get on them. There's purple tones in here going into gold and bronze, a darker blue, a really light blue. It really does. You get all of the normal colours that you would expect to get out of titanium when you flame it, but obviously at different rates across the piece, so it creates a different look. You can see buttons here by Zero Feud done in the same material. And then we've got something a bit different. This is sterling silver. I haven't seen, actually I think I'm right in saying this is the only spinner I've seen. This is the Amber Mod spinner in really beautiful handcrafted stainless steel. I keep on saying it, don't I? Sterling silver, which is really nice. It's obviously a very expensive material, although this is actually quite a cost-effective spinner considering the fact that it's using that. But I would consider that it's a pretty fine high-end material, so I think it deserves its place amongst all of these as well. So why in the blue would you choose to purchase one of these, given the fact that the prices can be extremely high? Indeed, when you look at something like this Mokuti stubby here, one of these runs you at over 500 Great British pounds. That is an expensive spinner, and indeed there has to be a certain level of insanity and collectability involved in that for you to want to purchase it. One, you have to be insane enough to think it's beautiful enough to warrant that kind of sum. Obviously I do, judge me as you will. But also you have to be aware of the fact that you're buying a collectible piece, and while the secondary prices are currently going through a complete flux at the moment on this stuff, and for the better I personally think, I don't think you'll ever lose much money on buying exotic pieces like this. Something like this Superconductor, I'm extremely lucky to have this. There's only 5 of these. Don't go and chase Paul over this one because he hasn't even decided if he's going to produce these as a batch yet. You will find out via the Facebook group for Rotorblade when and if he does. But I absolutely love Superconductor. It's a wonderful thing, and indeed if you get one of the standard stubbies like this, the OG stubby in Superconductor, it will run you a very similar price to this. Something like Damasteel is a bit cheaper. It's more easily sourced. It's regularly produced for use in things like this. The same with the Mokuti. They're both produced often for the knife market, for the high-end custom knife market, and they're beautiful materials, but they are continuously produced, so you can be pretty sure that there will always be more of them. There is a steady supply. That's not always the case with Superconductor. It can be hard for people to get a hold of. When it comes to tungsten, you can always get a hold of tungsten, but it's a very hard material to machine. So part of what you're paying, although it is expensive as well, when you buy a tungsten piece, is the amount of the amount of tools that they go through to actually make anything out of tungsten. Paul at Rotorblade has only done one batch of tungsten stubbies, and they were just a nightmare. The other problem with tungsten, it's a little bit better, I believe, with tungsten copper, but tungsten is inherently imbalanced. The way that the different structures inside the material are organised is never uniform, and so balancing something like a spinner with tungsten is an incredibly difficult thing to do. And indeed, that's one of the problems with superconductor. You'll always see in the top market, when people make things out of superconductor, that people will always say that they will wobble. Now, Paul has done a really good job, particularly with the bi-stubby, the original, in that he managed to get most of them balanced quite well. They were always unlikely to be as stable as something like the Mokuti or a titanium or a brass or whatever stubby would be in a much more uniform material, but they were pretty good. The tri is even harder to do because you've got 3 arms to try and balance the filament in, and it's always going to have inevitable problems in terms of its absolute stability. That won't bother, to be honest with you. I don't think many people are buying these for them to be the most ultimately stable spinners. You're buying them for their aesthetic beauty, and so it probably won't put that many people off, I wouldn't have thought, but I know that it is a challenge in the same way that it is with the tungsten. Mokume is a slightly cheaper material, generally I believe, although what I've been hearing recently, particularly about the 3-colour Mokume, is that it's actually really expensive, often just as much as the other materials. So, I mean, don't expect, big drops when it comes to stuff like that generally. This is just 2-colour, and I think it's beautiful, I have to say. I think it works really well on this particular Turnian from NTO Designs. But 3-colour is maybe even prettier. It's lovely stuff. So, yeah, I mean, that is exotic materials. Only you will know if this sort of thing is within your budget, and there's nothing wrong with it either being in your budget or not. No one should be shaming anyone for spending their money on whatever the hell they like. But on top of that, if it isn't in your budget, well, it's not the end of the world, to be absolutely honest with you, in terms of what you get. The truth is that I genuinely enjoy spinning something like this brass stubby. This is my oldest stubby, I think. This is from the very first run. I love this just as much as I love any of the others, and indeed I have huge sentimental attachment to this guy. This is the first ever metal stubby tri-stubby that was produced, and being absolutely honest with you, is it supremely exciting for someone who absolutely loves spinners and has a channel like this to have these 3 in hand? Yes, it is, no question at all, but you don't need to. It's not that this is something which, you either, if you can't do this, then there's no way you have a great spinner collection. That's not the case at all. It's just, if you're lucky enough to be in a position to purchase them and you really like them, you'll know that. And hopefully most people watching this video already had that perception, but please don't have a go at people because they're spending their money on what they want to spend it on. Spinners are ostensibly, with the exception of their relaxation properties and maybe their help for people with ADHD or anxiety problems, certainly I find they help with anxiety, but ultimately they are pointless. They're a toy. They're a fun adult toy in this form, and you buy them because they're a hobby and they're something you enjoy. And if you want to get them in crazy materials that the guys in the top world have been loving for a long time, you go ahead and do it, much like I do, because some of us are crazy enough to. And if you don't want to do it, that's absolutely fine as well. No judgment either way. They're beautiful materials, they're gorgeous things, and they're nice to look at. And I think that more than anything else, when you're considering that most of us buy spinners because we like the designs and the handling of them and all the rest of it, then certainly something like this is really just part and parcel of that. So there you go, guys. There's a look at some exotic materials. Like I say, you can hit the link in the description below to go to the Spinnermint website where I wrote that article. Hopefully that'll be a bit more helpful to some of you. And yeah, great stuff. Thank you very much, guys. Catch you in the next video. Bye-bye.